My husband discovered my infidelity with our horse. A genuine tale of betrayal. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Giz, and I possess a tale waiting to unfold. A tale that may astonish some of you, and perhaps lead others to ponder my choices. Yet, this is the reality I hold dear. It's a secret I've guarded for ages, and at last, I've resolved to reveal the truth. Let me begin by clarifying that this is not a sensational story filled with outrageous antics or scandalous revelations. This narrative delves into the complexities of love and loneliness, exploring how a seemingly innocent connection spiraled into chaos. Allow me to transport you to the beginning. For nearly 10 years, my husband Rich and I have shared the journey of marriage. Our paths crossed just as we emerged from the halls of academia. He possessed ambition and charm, the sort of man who could enter any room and instantly command the attention of all present. I plunged into love with him, and the initial moments of our relationship felt as if they were lifted straight from a romantic film. It was flawless. As the years rolled on, the idyllic facade of life began to fade. Rich found himself away from home more frequently than he would have liked. His role was relentless, filled with the ceaseless rhythm of travel for business meetings, conferences, and networking events. Though I recognized the significance of his work, the void it created weighed heavily on our marriage. We drifted apart, our conversations dwindling to mere whispers over the span of days. Our conversations, when they occurred, tended to skim the surface. The familiar exchange of daily pleasantries. How was your day? And what culinary delights await us for dinner? Yet, beneath the surface, a profound loneliness lingered. I found myself yearning for attention, companionship, and a presence to occupy the emptiness that Rich had inadvertently created in my life. That was the moment when everything began to shift. Our days unfolded on a serene, tranquil farm nestled just beyond the city's reach. The allure of this place lay in its expansive space and the chance to nurture animals. We kept a handful of chickens, a pair of goats, and, naturally, our beloved horse Mid. Mid stood as a striking black stallion, his beauty matched only by his strength. His gentle temperament suggested a profound understanding of emotions, surpassing that of many humans. My affection for horses had always been profound, and Mid held a unique place in my heart. He was a present from Rich for our 5th wedding anniversary, a symbol of his affection, despite his frequent absences. In the endless, solitary hours of Rich's absence, Mid emerged as my beacon of solace. Hours would slip away in the stable, where I would brush him gently, share my thoughts, and simply revel in the warmth of his company. It may seem odd, but there's an uncanny ability in animals to perceive your pain. Mid had an uncanny ability to sense my sadness or frustration, nudging me softly with his nose as if to convey, "I'm here, you're not alone." As time passed, those moments spent with Mid emerged as the pinnacle of my days. I discovered that I was revealing my deepest feelings to him, sharing secrets I couldn't even confide in my husband. Mid embodied patience, free from judgment, and remained a constant presence. He seemed to embody the emotional support I had longed for. "I can almost hear your thoughts. How on earth could I draw a comparison between a horse and my husband?" Yet, one must grasp that Rich was nowhere to be found, and Mid was my sole companion. It was on a summer evening that the turning point arrived. Rich had once again ventured out of town, leaving me to grapple with a wave of melancholy that seemed to envelop me more than usual. After ending the call with him, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were merely two strangers, each navigating our own distinct paths. I stepped out toward the stable, yearning for a moment of tranquility with Mid. While I gently ran my brush through his coat, I began to speak to him, just as I always did. Yet, on this occasion, an unmistakable shift lingered in the air. I found myself pouring out my frustrations, expressing my loneliness, and reflecting on the deep sense of disconnection I felt from Rich. As I meandered through my thoughts, lost in the flow of words, it struck me with a jolt that I was discussing Mid in a manner that sent my heart into a frenzy. I found myself pausing, shaking my head, and letting out a chuckle. "Giz, you're being utterly absurd," I reminded myself. Mid was a horse, a truly magnificent creature, indeed. Yet, merely a horse. I attempted to dismiss the peculiar thoughts that had started to infiltrate my mind. As the days unfolded, I discovered myself drawn back to the stable with increasing frequency, spending more time there than was perhaps wise, and experiencing an inexplicable deepening bond with Mid. A wave of guilt washed over me. How could I find myself so deeply connected to an animal when I had a husband by my side? Yet, the harder I attempted to distance myself, the more intense the bond grew. Mid lingered in the shadows, a constant presence. And Rich. Indeed, Rich was not. The reality is, my actions didn't align with the typical notion of cheating. There existed no tangible treachery, no liaison in the traditional understanding. Yet, on an emotional level, I had indeed crossed a boundary. I found myself sharing secrets with Mid that were meant only for my husband. Then, one fateful evening, the world as we knew it came crashing down. Rich returned home unexpectedly from one of his journeys. I was in the stable, as usual, with Mid, completely unaware of his arrival in the driveway. I was unaware of the hours that slipped away, how deeply I had immersed myself in this peculiar emotional bond. As Rich entered the stable, he discovered me beside Mid, murmuring gently to him. Rich slipped into my awareness only when the moment had passed, leaving me with a sense of regret. "What are you up to?" Rich's voice cut through the air, laced with a blend of confusion and suspicion. His gaze flickered between me and Mid, as though he were attempting to unravel the intricate tableau laid out before him. I stood still, my heart racing within my chest. Words eluded me. What's the best way to articulate this without appearing irrational? Rich lingered before me, his gaze fixed, anticipating an explanation that eluded my grasp. How might I even start to articulate the tumult of emotions that had ensnared me? The stillness in the stable seemed to extend endlessly, interrupted solely by the gentle snorts of Mid, blissfully ignorant of the tempest that had just arrived. "Shiz, what on earth is happening?" Rich inquired once more, his tone laced with a blend of bewilderment and frustration. He moved in closer, his gaze sharpening as though he were striving to decipher the scene before him. I instinctively stepped back, placing a hand on Mid's side, as though he could somehow protect me from the impending confrontation. "It's not as you perceive it, Rich." I stumbled over my words, uncertain of his thoughts at that moment. How could he articulate the spectacle unfolding before him when I struggled to grasp it myself? He shook his head, a clear sign of his skepticism. "Then enlighten me, for I return home early only to discover you here," murmuring to our horse as if he were. I find myself at a loss for words. What should I be contemplating? I inhaled deeply, searching for the right words to articulate the profound emotional bond I had formed with Mid, all while striving to avoid sounding utterly irrational. "Rich, your absence has been quite noticeable lately," I began, and I could already perceive the frustration mounting in his gaze. "I understand that this is your responsibility, and I recognize the effort you're putting in for our benefit, yet, loneliness has wrapped itself around me. And Mid, he has stood by my side. He has been there to listen when I found myself without anyone else to turn to." He raised his hands in a gesture of frustration. "He is a horse, Shiz. It sounds as if you're referring to him as if he were a person." A shiver ran through me at his words, yet I couldn't refute the truth in them. "I understand," I murmured, "yet he was present in your absence." I began conversing with him, driven by the absence of anyone else in my life. It simply spiraled beyond control. Rich's gaze met mine, a complex tapestry of disbelief woven with threads of hurt etched across his face. "What does it matter? Are you suggesting that you engaged in an emotional affair with a horse?" The words struck me as utterly ridiculous, yet the truth of the matter was not nearly as implausible as it appeared. It was never my intention for things to unfold this way. I spoke softly, my eyes brimming with tears. Loneliness enveloped me, Rich. In my moment of solitude, I found solace in the presence of Mid, a companion ready to listen. He shook his head once more, visibly grappling with the weight of it all. What is it that you are trying to convey to me? That you hold affection for him? So, you prefer his company over mine? His voice wavered just a bit, revealing that, beneath the fury, lay a profound sense of betrayal. No, of course not, I replied swiftly, stepping forward and extending my hand toward his. My dearest Rich, my affection for you runs deep, yet in my solitude, I faltered and made an error. I allowed my feelings to overwhelm me, seeking solace in mid when I ought to have sought it in you. He withdrew his hand, striding restlessly within the confines of the small stable. This is utterly unbelievable. This situation is utterly perplexing to me. Upon my return, this is what greets me. My wife revealed something unexpected, an emotional connection with our horse. I found myself rooted in place, a sense of helplessness washing over me as I grappled with the uncertainty of how to mend the situation. Rich, if you would be so kind. It wasn't quite that way. I engaged in no physical actions, nor did I partake in anything inappropriate. Loneliness enveloped me, and I found myself adrift within its depths. For a fleeting moment, silence enveloped him. He remained motionless, his back facing me, as he struggled to gather his thoughts. At last, he found his voice. Can you believe how wild this sounds, Giz? What a ridiculous situation this is. I nodded, my voice scarcely rising above a whisper. I understand, yet it remains the truth. In the depths of solitude, I allowed my judgment to be obscured, and for that, I express my regret. I never intended for it to reach this point. Rich pivoted to meet my gaze, a hint of warmth flickering across his features. What kept you from reaching out to me? Why didn't you share with me that you were feeling this way? I made an attempt, I confessed, my voice quivering with emotion. Yet, whenever I attempted to discuss it, you seemed perpetually occupied, fatigued, or simply preoccupied. Ultimately, I surrendered. I considered that perhaps this was simply the way life was destined to unfold. In the stillness of mid, I discovered solace. It may seem absurd, but he provided support for me in a manner that you did not. He let out a deep sigh, his fingers tangling in his hair as he contemplated the weight of the moment. I was unaware that you harbored such feelings. I pondered. I believed everything was all right between us. We were not, I responded gently. However, I hesitated to impose this upon you. Your relentless dedication to work often left me hesitant to express my own needs. Yet, the reality is, I required you, Rich. I found myself in need of my husband. In your absence, I found solace in the embrace of mid. A heavy silence enveloped us as we stood there, the gravity of the moment settling in around us. At last, Rich's voice emerged once more, this time imbued with a gentler quality. I find myself at a loss with this, Giz. I find myself at a crossroads, uncertain of the path ahead. I inhaled deeply, the warmth of tears cascading down my cheeks. I confessed that I didn't either. However, I am determined to resolve this issue. I desire to mend what we have between us. My heart is yours, and the thought of losing you is unbearable. Rich's gaze met mine, a tumultuous blend of anguish and doubt swirling within his eyes. I cherish you as well, Giz. However, this will require patience. I nodded, fully grasping the weight of the moment. I understand. I am prepared to take any necessary steps to set things straight. He let out another sigh, taking a step closer to me at last. It's time for a conversation about this. Engage in genuine conversation. Concerning all matters. Not merely the stroke of mid, but the essence of us. Identifying our missteps and exploring potential solutions. I nodded, extending my hand once more, and this time, I felt his grip tighten in response. I am prepared to engage in conversation, Rich. I am prepared to set things straight. In that dimly lit stable, the atmosphere heavy with unspoken words, I understood that we were embarking on the journey to mend what had once been shattered. The path ahead promised to be fraught with challenges. It was clear that this transformation would not occur in the blink of an eye. Yet, after what felt like an eternity, a flicker of hope ignited within me. Perhaps, just perhaps, we might rediscover our path to one another. Thus, Giz and Rich embark on the arduous journey of mending their marriage, striving to reconnect and rekindle the love that had once united them.